Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, and what is left of his voice coming at you at the tail end of an offseason, recording this the night before both Team USA and Team Canada attempt to get to the World Cup final. So you won't be hearing anything about that because those games haven't happened yet, unfortunately. But boy, do we have something even better. And that is I want to call you my partner in crime, even though we're not partners. I feel like you've been my spiritual partner doing this shit for, God, I've lost track of the years. The one, the only, the Fanchise CP of Knicks Fan TV. How are you, my friend?
John, doing good, man. I said, when we scheduled this, that the KFS KFTV crossover usually signifies the start of the NBA season, or it's vastly approaching. So it's a good time of year, man. We got football starting up, basketball around the corner, World Cup to whet our appetite a little bit. It's a good time, man.
It is a good. It's like flowers blooming signifies spring, or what's the wood? Not I was going to say woodchuck, the groundhog when he pops out of his little hole. That's us. We're the groundhog. We pop out of our little hole.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. Anyway, so we have a gimmick today that we're going to continue. I know we did it last year. Maybe we did it the year before. Andrew has a much better memory than me, where we have some questions that we're going to be taking, and me and CP are both going to be going through whatever people want to hear us talk about. But before we get to the first of those, I only have one question for you, and it's related to what I just kind of said, that we've been at this for a while. I find, and I've been thinking about this recently because now we're starting to get ramped back up again. I find that with each passing offseason, I have the need to unplug and distance myself a little bit more, which, as you know better than anyone, can't truly do because there's always some content to put out. There's always more stuff to do. I'm just curious because you're the only one out there who I think does this to the level that we do. Do you find that that's the same for you, where because the bigger you get, the more you just need a break? Or is it like the opposite, because like now you feel even more the need to always be producing, always be, so like how have the last few months, been for you?
Yeah. You know what? I do get that feeling, but also the adrenaline that came with the playoffs.
That's fair.
The playoff run, from doing the content to being at MSG, being outside in MSG with the mosh pits and all that energy, you kind of wanted to keep it going a little bit. And so I did take a little bit of a break, and then I went out to Jamaica. From there, I went to Summer League. Summer League was a vibe in itself, even though the team wasn't that good. But actually, during the finals, we started the NBA report. So
I love it.
So we've got double duty, covering the NBA report, covering KFTV, but that's been growing pretty well. So I haven't really taken the time off that I wanted to, but at the end of the day, it's been fun. This off-season journey has been a good time.
God bless you, man. Because again, I was joking with Andrew earlier today. Could not do what you do and actually take callers. It's enough that I read the thoughts of people on the screen. If I did what you do and actually heard people, I don't want to say ramble on. Some of the stuff is very insightful. Sometimes. Yeah. I would need a nice vacation, but you're a better man than me.
It's Knicks therapy, man. But I've gotten so used to it, doing it for 6 years. It's like, all right, you know what to expect on a given night, whether it's a win or a bad loss. So you kind of know what to expect.
You do. Yeah, I'll say that you do. And as you know what to expect more and more as the weeks and months and years pass, it does it makes it easier, but it's also, it's like, it's still, there's still something that, when a particularly nasty comment or a call is coming down the pike, and it's going to, like, if it hits a nerve for you and it's going to hit that nerve, you're like, you got to prepare yourself. That never goes away.
Never goes away.
But we're lucky that we get to do it. And we're lucky we get to do this. And that is talk, with, I'll say we could see training camp. We could see media day, like kind of, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's 3 weeks now, or abouts, right? I think the official media day is October 2nd, but it's coming, it's coming, and a good time to kind of maybe lay some groundwork before we really get into the thick of preseason projections and all that kind of stuff. So unless there's anything else, I'm going to turn it to my trusty producer here, wearing the original, the what is it? From the Bear, the show.
Yes, the shirt from the Bear.
T-shirt from the Bear.
Nice.
CB, you watch the Bear?
I do not. I haven't.
You do not.
On the off season, I did try to catch up on shows, and I did catch Succession, but I didn't catch the Bear. So it's in order. I have some, a queue of shows I'm trying to catch up on at some point in my lifetime. But I did watch Succession. It was fantastic.
Do you like Succession?
I loved it. I finished it.
You finished? Okay.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
I got through the first season. I made it halfway through the second season. People are going to think I'm so much less of me when I say this.
Wow.
I had no interest in any of these people.
Wow. It wasn't for
finding
you.
out what they were doing.
Oh, man. I was into it, man. Lockstep.
Everybody is. It's like considered one of the greatest shows of all time. Andrew thinks so little of me that he knows this view of mine. So I don't, you give me a lot of reasons to think little of you at times. And this is maybe at the top of the list, Jonathan.
You know
what I've been catching up on? Because my wife decided that my daughter needed this as part of her life. Full House, starting from season 1, episode 1.
Wow.
My wife and I have been watching it with our oldest, who's about to turn 7 in a few weeks. You want to talk about a trip? Going back down and watching some like 30 some odd years later. Oh boy, almost 40 years later. What am I saying? Yeah.
What does she think about it? What does your daughter think about it?
Absolutely loves it. Wow. And thinks Michelle, the baby, is anything she does. She thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. It's incredible.
It's funny,
dude. That humor and that style can still resonate today with the younger generation.
I like it. Yes, what you just said completely.
That's funny.
So I don't want to set any expectations, but speaking of television and finally watching something, John, I think you will be happy to know that, and I can make this reference now. I think I can officially say that I'm your Christopher, because Roseanne and I are in the middle of season 1 of The Sopranos, and we love it. We're finally taking the plunge into The Sopranos. CP, I'd held it off first. I know how the last episode ends too, so there's something to that mystery, like not impacting me at all. Then there's also like the it took forever for me to watch Star Wars because I knew I am your father. I know all of the different ubiquitous references that are around. So it's not necessarily imperative for me to jump on it. We said, because I'm not sure if you know this, right? If any of our listeners know this, I got married this summer. So
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. As soon as we get done with wedding planning, we'll finally take the plunge into The Sopranos. And then we waited 2 more months after that. And then we're like, you know what? Now we got no excuses. So
do me a favor, check back with me after the show's over to let me know if you still feel like you are my Christopher. And we'll have that conversation.
Oh, okay. Yes. I'm in season 1, Christopher, at the moment. Although who's our Uncle June?
Listen, I need a lot more time.
So early. Yeah. It's still so early. CP, did you watch The Sopranos?
Of course. Yeah.
Of course, he said. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll echo your. I love Succession. I thought it's the closest thing to a Trump documentary that we're gonna get. So I echo all your sentiments about it, but we are here to talk about a different family, and it's the Knicks content family that covers this team in an elite way. I have sent out the bat signal to several different people that you all know and love, specifically you both know and love. And I think you're going to enjoy the different questions that are thrown at you. This is the same thing we do every year. That's right, John. We've done this every year for the past 3 seasons.
This is the 3rd or 4th one?
3rd one.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I'm glad you remembered the other 2 that I put so much work into and got people to give questions for.
I don't remember what I had for dinner tonight.
That's true. That's very true. So I will take you to your first question of the night. Here we go.
Oh, wow.
What's good, CP? What's good, Macri? It's Alex Harris here, a.k.a. the Stratocaster. You already know who it is. Soon to be the Datacaster. I got a Julius Randle question for both of you, okay? What's more likely to happen? 1, will Julius Randle get an extension and stay a Knick for another 4 seasons? 2, Will Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson be the leading ticket to a Knicks championship? Number 3, will Julius Randle be included in a trade for someone like Joel Embiid or Giannis Antetokounmpo? Number 4, will Jonathan Macri put another paper plate over Julius Randle's face? Or number 5, will CP and the Knicks chick, aka Lady KFTV, go on a dinner double date with Mr. and Mrs. Randle? Looking forward to your answer, fellas.
I didn't realize this was going to be like me back in law school taking notes that there was going to be 5 choices. Holy goodness gracious. Well, we could alter. I'll go just off the top of my head. I'll go first. We go back and forth. Yeah. The poster, by the way, for anybody listening and watching who is wondering, it is now on the outside of my office. So it's still there. They're still there to put a paper plate on his face. I'm not putting a paper plate up anytime soon. I'm curious if the same thing rung interestingly to you as it did to me, which was when Alex asked about the likelihood of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle leading the charge, right? That implies that they would be the best 2 players on the team. Yeah. Okay. I don't see that one happening. Do you?
No,
okay.
I don't see that. No.
For me, I get, putting aside double dates and paper plates, for me, I guess it comes down to he gets a 4-year extension or he's traded for a star. That's an interesting one. Are you leaning one way or the other?
It all depends on who becomes available. Right. Sure. As long as they're on this track where they're competitive, they're going to be one of the best teams in the East. I still believe it. I think Julius will still be a part of it and a part of the team's future until they can make a legitimate upgrade. Embiid is trying to say all the right things. He's here regardless of he's staying in Philly regardless of what happens with Harden. They all say that in the beginning. We'll see what happens as things transpire between Harden and Morey. It's a complete mess in Philadelphia. But until that guy becomes available, whether it is Embiid or it is Giannis, and I think it is going to be one of those 2 guys, I can see Leon in this regime sticking around with Julius as long as he maintains this all-star, all-NBA level. Well, I mean, why wouldn't you at this point?
So this is really interesting because, my God, are there 10 more fascinating careers in the last 20 years of the NBA? I could see a scenario where we get to next offseason when he can extend, even though he has another year left on the deal before his player option, and I'm not going to do a whole CBA thing, but the amount that he'd be able to extend for would be, I think, would be less, pretty sure, than what he could get if he hit the market and someone gave him a full max. I could see a scenario where the Knicks could sell it like we're getting an all NBA player at a quote unquote discount because all NBA players go for, you saw what Jalen Brown got, this and that, and they extend him for a decent amount of money. The only hesitation I have with that is, do you really want to commit to another 4 years on top of the file? Because again, we all remember what happened when things weren't going well. I got to say, I think the likeliest of those, and I don't think necessarily any of them are very likely. I think the likeliest of those is maybe he goes out in a trade. I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's what I would say.
That's what I would say. I think it's trade first, then extension. Last on the list would be dinner. However, I will say that between the 3 of us, me, you, and Alex, I am the only one to not be blocked by Julius Randle, despite the previous riffs and tiffs between me and the family. And he did leave us a nice, kind message on the Knicks Fan TV Instagram when we did post his 50-point outing against the Timberwolves. He said all love. So he extended an olive branch. So maybe dinner's not necessarily off the table. I don't like to muddy the waters. I like to stay on the content side and, let him handle the basketball stuff.
That you should print out or put that on a plaque and put it on a mantle. Julius Randle did not block me. His whole circle has blocked me. Someone referenced some trainer or something of his, and I clicked on the person's at thing on X, and I was blocked by that person too.
What?
Yeah, his wife. If he has any pets, I'm sure they've blocked him too. It's not a great situation.
Whole world out here, man.
Andrew, what's the next question?
Hold on.
Yes.
What did you just call Twitter?
X. Is it X now?
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Sorry.
We're not doing that. His mama called him X. His mama called him Twitter. I'm calling him Twitter. Okay, we're not doing that.
We're calling him the bird.
Exactly. It is
Bird
Twitter. I'm not letting him do that. Okay.
Fine.
He has ruined Twitter in so many ways. I'm not letting him keep it going. Do it that way with the name as well. Okay. Next up.
Hey guys, first time, long time. Just had a question about JB in regards to his accolades. He obviously almost made the All-Star team this past season. Do we think he's more than likely to make the All-Star game this season? And what do we think is his ceiling in regards to accolades, honors? Can he make first team, second team, third team, most improved even? He obviously has a lot more respect post-FIBA in the media. What do we think is the ceiling for him in regards to honors? I'll hang up and listen.
The best part of that for anybody who's listening and not watching is shout out to David Footernick. Thought he had a Little Tykes basketball hoop in the background. He just jammed. Same one that's right outside my office there. This is a good one. Yeah. What are your thoughts on ceiling here for Jalen Brunson?
Yeah, shout out to David first and foremost, man. Been a while. Definitely good to see him. As far as ceiling, I do think he can make the All-Star team in this upcoming season if he has a similar or better season. I just feel like his profile has been elevated, not just by his first full season as a starter with the Knicks on a big stage, proving that he can hang with the best of them and really lead this team to 47 wins, second round in the playoffs, and being the biggest part of it. And then you see him on the Team USA stage, how much respect Steve Kerr has for him, his teammates. I just feel like playing on that national stage, playing for Team USA is going to continue to elevate his profile. You can't disrespect him in 2 years in a row. He's going to deserve that. As far as, all NBA ceiling, I'm not so sure about first team. I think, that's certainly going to be reserved for elite talent, but third team is third team attainable? I think it is.
Absolutely. I think third team is, look at, I'm not naming any names.
Yeah.
Including of maybe some of that we just talked about a few minutes ago. You can make all NBA and if you have a really good season and if a few things break right, you could even make all NBA second team. Like you said, first team is a little bit like there haven't been that many guys that make first team that aren't like true, no doubt about it, all timer.
Yeah.
There's a few exceptions, like, things happen occasionally. What I want to see? My personal, like my high point for him is if there was ever a year where he is like a genuine part of the MVP conversation. And I say that in just that way. Do I think he will ever win? Of course, I don't think he's ever going to win MVP or even finish second or third. But like, I go back to Walt Frazier. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to my mind, but like the year the Knicks won their first championship, when Willis Reed won MVP, Walt Frazier finished fourth in the voting that year because the Knicks were just the best team, and everybody realized like Reed was the guy in the middle. He was the one who made it all work. But Frazier was pretty darn important too.
Yeah,
can Brunson? Maybe he's not even the guy who gets the most votes on his team. Maybe that's what it would take for the Knicks to be the best team in the league. I'm not talking about this next year or even maybe the year after that, but at some point, could he be fourth, fifth, sixth in the running for MVP, where he really gets that league wide, attention as being like that important of a figure? That's what I would say.
I think it's certainly possible, but when you look at the past MVPs, right? There's a level of elite that is just a cut above the rest, right? Whether it's as a two-way player or it's, Jokic with his triple doubles and really just impacting his team offensively.
To win it.
To win it.
Yeah.
So, but for him to crack that top four, top three.
That's what I'm saying. Like, would it shock you if at some point during his career he finished fourth? Like behind, like there's a Jokic, Giannis, Embiid type race.
Yeah.
And then Brunson slots in fourth. Like that, I could see that happening again, we're talking ceiling, right? That's what the question is, ceiling. So
hey, similar to Carmelo in 2012.
Man, was he in it that year? I mean, it was LeBron's award, right? It was
far and away, right? LeBron won it far and away. He was on the list. He was on the list.
There were people who really talked. I'm sure Andrew talked himself into it.
I didn't.
I talked nobody into it, sir, first and foremost. And I think the other part of this that is how Jalen Brunson's case actually gets stronger for me is he played 68 games last year. And I have no idea how much the 65 game qualification is going to matter as far as players are concerned. But if you go by last year, he would be more eligible than Dame Lillard, who made All NBA. He would be more eligible than I think another guard that made it. That
Steph made it, didn't he?
That's Steph, right? So, like, just the qualification of playing 65 games alone, in my mind,
he plays
gives
games.
him, because it's the Knicks, and we're just going to have guys that play at least 65 games make All NBA.
What we don't know is how much this 65 game thing is going to impact whether, like, again, for Dame, you mentioned Dame, he didn't play the requisite amount of games because his team told him to go take his ball and sit down for a while.
Very true. I wonder
we'll see.
His team might do that this year from game 2, game 3.
Yeah.
Who knows what happens? All righty. Next up.
Hey, John, CP, here's a casual question from one of the casual crew. Do you guys think that Immanuel Quickley 6th Man of the Year candidacy from last year is legitimate and that he will be one of the front runners this year? Or do you have your doubts, a little bit skeptical, and do you think that he's due for a bit of a regression this year? Thanks, guys.
Here's the funny thing. I'm not even sure what a regression from Immanuel Quickley would look like, right? Because I don't know. I should know his numbers off the top of my head. I don't. But, like, he didn't shoot crazy good last year, right? Like, I know he went through a hotter stretch after starting very cold, but in the totality of his season, his shooting wasn't crazy. And, like, to me, the value of Immanuel Quickley is the fact that all the things that he does well, you just feel like they're built into his day after day after day after day.
Yeah.
It's not that his consistency really, I mean, you could argue it's his best quality, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did take a step up in the mid-range.
Absolutely.
Free throws are but I mean, as a two-way player, it was as legit as it comes. I think Immanuel Quickley certainly established himself as one of the best role players in the entire NBA. And yeah, some people, based on the advanced metrics, wanted to give it to him over Brogdon. And, maybe some people also thought that the 20-plus game started might have disqualified him a little bit. But look, I thought Quickley was certainly one of the best in the league, and he showed it, whether you're looking at the stats or the eye test. Can he repeat that? I think that's left to be seen, right? You have the addition of DiVincenzo here, the subtraction of Obi. How does the bench play together? I like Quickley and DiVincenzo and Hart out there. I think they're going to be dynamic, especially on the defensive end. But the minutes in the rotation, fourth quarter, what is it that going to look like? Now, Quickley has shown over the past 3 years, he's Tibbs' guy, right? He's been one of the most trusted, most reliable pieces to play in that fourth quarter for Tibbs. But how does the DiVincenzo acquisition, how does Hart coming in on a full year, new contract, how does that impact things? Does Quentin Grimes take another leap? So we're going to have to see what Quickley's minutes are going to look like as a reserve for right now to better determine whether or not he can maintain that pace.
Yeah, it's funny. The addition of DiVincenzo as just another guy that Tibbs can look at, and at least if he's having a good game, because we know what he does on the court, we know he does a lot of the things that Tibbs seems to like.
Yeah.
Just another guy for Tibbs to think about as, is this a guy who should be on one of my last 5 players on the floor, right? And like, you figure, they removed Obi, but I don't think Obi was in many of those considerations for Tibbs last season. So really, I'm not saying Quick is going to close a lot fewer games. I'm not saying that at all, but the fact that he was part of the closing 5, I think was a big thing in a lot of voters' minds, where it's like, okay, he doesn't start, but is he one of New York's 5 best players? Absolutely. And I think there was an argument that he was maybe even their 3rd best player last year. If he's not that automatic closer anymore, let's say that, if he's not that automatic closer anymore, I wonder if that's going to make it more of an uphill battle. And it's almost like I'm thinking of like an Oscar, a great movie that has a ton of great performances where you get like 2 or 3 actors are actually up for like best supporting or something, and they cancel each other out, and then the guy from like some other movie wins. I wonder if that sort of thing might end up happening next year, specifically in terms of like a 6 Man of the Year type of thing. Wouldn't shock me.
Just want to quickly say shout out to Mensa. That was Mensa Smith.
Absolutely.
For those who didn't,
thank you, Mensa.
Yeah, so those who didn't recognize the voice listening on the podcast. Next up,
John, CP, love this annual crossover. Love that I get to contribute to it because I have a question. I have a burning question. I'm going to get right to it. You guys know I read everything out there about the Knicks. The Athletic just put out a piece where they rank the Knicks center group, the center room, the 23rd best in the NBA, bottom 10, behind Orlando, behind Houston. Where do you guys rank the Knicks center group? I would say top 10 is more realistic than bottom 10. Am I wrong? Is the Athletic right? Other way around? What's going on with your guys' opinion on that? I think the playoffs showed us a lot from Hartenstein against Miami, from Robinson, and Hartenstein against Cleveland. Curious for your guys' thoughts. Thanks for taking my question.
So it just occurred to me, Chris Persianen, I've known him for I think 4 years. His voice gets deeper every year.
He's still growing.
I'm fearful of what he's going to sound like when he's like, forget like 50, when he's like 28.
Yeah.
You know,
he's gonna sound like Mufasa when we do this next year.
Exactly what he's gonna sound like.
Yeah.
Shout out to Chris, man. He's gonna be the next rising star out of Fordham, man. He's on the grind. He's everywhere. I just saw him a couple weeks ago at Fordham, and so shout out to Chris, man. Doing great work.
Chris is all about the grind, and he sounds like it. So that's good. Man, center rotations. There was behind the scenes a little bit. There was a few texts sent about the Knicks placement on that. Again, that is not the Athletics list. That is one writer on the Athletic who ranked the Knicks center duo.
Who was it, by the way? Was it Harper?
No, I thought it was.
It was sounded like it come from him.
I'll look it up. All
right.
It's not someone that I am that familiar with, although I'm sure it's very accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw that, I was like, look, my inclination is to say that there's somewhere in the high teens, meaning like 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that range. And that specifically because they are so low usage in the Knicks offensive scheme. And specifically, I'm talking about Mitch, because we know Hartenstein can do more. We've seen him do more with the Clippers. But because Mitch is so limited in not one specific area, in just what he can do offensively compared to other centers, and his skill set is so directly involved with offensive rebounds, putbacks, and obviously rim protection on the other end, and pick and roll, the whole thing. I could at least see an argument if someone wanted to look at the center position in just such a way. Could you say that they're like below 15? Maybe if you really, really try to talk me into it. That said, it feels like they're probably a little bit outside the top 10 for me. I mean, we could go through teams, but off the top of your head, what do you have them?
Way higher than what the Athletic has. I felt like that was more of a conversation piece. I got to put them 10, 15. Top 10, 15 at the lowest. Because when you think about how this offense flowed, yes, it's heavy isolation, and a lot of that is Brunson and Randle doing what they do best. But when you consider how well they've been able to offensive rebound in this league, not just this year, but for years while Mitch has been there at an elite level, it's a staple of their offense. Their ability to get second chance opportunities is super critical for the way that they operate. And so to have that type of skill set, that's just on the offensive side. We know what he brings defensively as a rim protector, as a guy out there that can provide some versatility in pick and roll coverage. I think he's just super important to how they operate as a team. Yes, they have weaknesses, and yes, the spacing can be compromised with Mitch, but I just think he's way too important for this team. And then for Hartenstein, okay, for the first half of the year, he wasn't good. The second half, I thought he locked in. You saw more plays being run through him. more of those backdoor cuts, more of him operating from the nail. Defensively, he certainly held it down. That was one of his weaknesses coming over from the Clippers. Absolutely. Was his ability to defensive rebound. And late in the season, when you saw Mitch kind of lumbering to the finish line, it was Hartenstein that was in there for critical moments.
Closing games.
Go back to that last West Coast trip where he had to tango with Sabonis and Nurkic and all those guys, and then come back to the Garden, go up against Jokic in the closing minutes. But, Mitch did finish that game as well. I just thought at the end, near the second half, Tibbs really had the option of going with one or the other, and the Knicks still fared well in those games. I feel like both those guys are way too important to the team. Low usage, as you said, but I'm putting them top 10, 15 at the lowest.
I literally did a 60-second scan of the standings going through team by team. I'd probably have them 11th or 12th. I think there's an argument for 10. And again, just to be very clear, if you're discount the fact that Mitchell Robinson is either the first or second best center in the league at a very important skill set, offensive rebounding and putbacks, which, by the way, the Knicks have built their entire offense around that particular skill. Yeah. And then the combination of rim protection and being able to corral a pick and roll, again, as well as, I don't know, there are 5 centers that could corral a pick and roll better than him. I don't even know if there's 5. I don't think that there is. Those are 2 elite skill sets at either end of the floor. If you're going to discount that because you say this is a player who you really can't reliably throw the ball to 6 feet from the basket and trust that he's going to do something with, I hear that. And if you want to look at, I guess offense a certain way, maybe there's an argument, but I would say 11 or 12. I think they're really good.
Yeah, I can see that, from an offensive potential standpoint, they're not really there. But if you're going to put Allen and Mobley up there at the top of the tops, and these guys smoked them in the playoffs.
Absolutely smoked them.
I mean, you got to respect that, man.
Yeah, and I think that's what probably aggravated a lot of Knicks fans, as it should. You cannot put the guys that were thoroughly outplayed 8th and then put the guys that thoroughly outplayed them 23rd.
Right.
There can't be 15 spots difference.
Too big of a gap.
Good question, Chris.
That was Law Murray of the Athletic.
Law Murray. Okay.
And to our friend Fred Katz, or on behalf of our friend Fred Katz, who is not taking a direct shot at his colleague, but just wants to reiterate, it's not the Athletics rankings, and it is just that one person. The Athletic there was Athletic on Athletic crime, or just back and forth this week between the Anthony Edwards op-eds that were he should move to a bigger market, and then the response of actually no, he shouldn't move to a bigger market. That was interesting.
He should do whatever he wants to do. Nobody needs to write about it. What's going to happen is going to happen. It's ridiculous.
I think he should go to the Knicks, but that's just I will write that next. I'll write that next, please. Actually, he should go to the Knicks. How's that?
Anthony Edwards come to New York. My column. Here we go.
There you go. Next up.
Hello, Knicks Film School. Hello, Jonathan Macri. Hello, Andrew, Claudio, and friends. Schmelk here. All right, I have a question about RJ Barrett. During the playoffs, John, you were effusive with your praise for RJ, how well he played, and some of the things he started to do a little bit better. Yet, when we get to the end of the postseason and you look at the aggregate numbers, maybe there's some slight improvement, but it really doesn't differ that much from what he's done before in terms of efficiency numbers, specifically on offense. Now, not everything is reflected in numbers, and I think he was a better decision maker in the playoffs. But at the same time, we've seen RJ go through different streaks of good and then bad play in his career. He's great for a couple weeks, then he reverts back. So my question is, why do you hate RJ Barrett? No, I'm sorry. My question is, do you think RJ Barrett really turned a corner in the playoffs? Or do you think this is just a continuation of his kind of good play, bad play, and streakiness we've seen during his career? Or has he really turned the corner and is ready to become maybe an all-star caliber player? Macri, what do you think?
John Schmelk of NewYorkGiants.com, we should say.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to clarify that I sent him the request. I think I left out the part that it was a crossover. So he sent his love to you too, CP. I want on behalf of him, just making sure.
That's my guy, man. Absolutely.
You're bad. I had to get Crow and Barrett Jr. down for this one. He has a literal perch now above my desk in my new setup here. It's funny. RJ's had some really nice moments in FIBA so far. And yet he's also had some not so great moments. To me, the thing that made the playoffs so special was for 8 games there. If we're throwing out the first 2 against Cleveland, right? And we're throwing out the last game against Miami because nobody played well in that game except for Jalen Brunson. You could argue it was the most consistent 8-game stretch of his career from like a whole, like the perspective of his whole game coming together, and it came at the most critical juncture of his career. Yeah. So when you combine those two things, I think that's why I was really drinking the Kool-Aid. And has he been a different player in FIBA? No, he's been inconsistent, but again, like the good has been really good, and it's come at really important times.
I agree. The first 2 games against Cleveland were pretty bad, pretty bad. Game 6 against Miami equally, but as you said, that stretch in between, he was the second best player on the team, hands down,
without question.
And you saw him making great reads. He continued to be aggressive. He was finishing at the hoop. That was the RJ that you wanted to see. I just don't buy that he's turned a corner. It was a great moment. It was a fantastic moment for him, and you love to see it. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it, man, because he's just been so inconsistent. We've seen it in FIBA. He's had his good games, and he's had his woeful games.
Well, what is your definition of turning a corner, though? Because for me, I'm not ruling out that he could ever make an all-star team. Look, crazy things have happened. But to me, for RJ, turning a corner would just mean being a guy I could look forward to watching on a given night and feeling positive about what I'm likely to get, which is not a feeling I have had thus far. Like, to me, that's what turning a corner is. Do you think he could do that? Where the consistency gets to a level that you're okay with?
See, that's the key word. It's
the only word,
right? It's the consistency, because if he's going to be playing off of Jalen, if he's going to be playing off of Julius in off-ball situations, can he knock down those open threes, those corner threes that you're going to need him to knock down? Again, is there an intermediate? I've been saying it for the last 3-4 years. Is there an intermediate jumper that he can rely on, where it's not just, I'm going to jam it down your throat going left, which I'm going to do. And if he's going to do that, can he make a play? Can he find an open man? Can he find somebody on the weak side, which he was doing well in the playoffs in that stretch. Well. But then there's other times where it's just like head down, tunnel vision. I got to get myself going because I've been bricking from outside. So I got to force it inside to get some going. And then sometimes he gets into trouble there. I'm just not convinced yet that those woes are fully behind him. I just think he's just going to have those stretches or those games where it's going to be nightmares from an efficiency standpoint. And he's going to have other ones where he's looking good. He gets his 8 attempts from the free throw line. He's knocking down 6. He's got his 24 and the team wins. But I just don't see him really being efficient. So it's just hard to say that he's turned the corner.
I want to see more. I'm with you. Give me, I love the intermediate range jumper. Give me 37.5% from 3.
Yeah.
Not even 37.5%. Give me 37.5% from 3 on open catch and shoots.
Right.
Give me that, and give me the decision making on drives that we saw during the playoffs. Give me those 2 things. I will be the happiest man alive if you give me those 2 things. That's it.
During the, I forgot which game. It was one of the early games when the FIBA tournament kicked off. And I don't even know who the announcer was, but there was a stretch where you just saw it. RJ was just really just forcing it and just getting Canada out of the flow that they were in. And the announcer was just like, he's got to slow it down and just take what the defense is giving him. He doesn't have to do too much. You have guys that are hot on this team. He was just kind of getting them out of that flow. And it just made me go back to a comment that Tibbs had early in the regular season last year. It was off of one of RJ's good games. And Tibbs said the same thing. It's like, listen, take what the defense gives you. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to play hero ball and let the game come to you. And I think that's what part of what RJ needs to do to be a consistent player for this team.
The game tells you what to do, and there's hope, because I feel like, who's gotten, I don't know if I'm being too optimistic here. I felt like Julius Randle got a little bit better at that last year, letting the game come to him. Now, I think that may have been the Jalen Brunson effect, but yeah, I think it could happen. And again, RJ, we always say it, he's still relatively young. So,
which the haters hate to hear. They hate to hear.
According to many, I am the primo hater, which I'm really not.
Neither of you answered the question.
What was the?
Why do you hate RJ Barrett?
that was for John. That was for John. That was not for me. That was for John.
So John, we'll never know. This is my Kanye moment. I guess we'll never know. Okay. Next up.
What's good, guys? What's up, J-Mac? What's up, CP? Good to talk to you guys about some Knicks basketball. Makes me excited that Knicks basketball is right around the corner. It's a good time for us to talk about some hoops. But I had a question for you guys. And I want to talk about the Knicks playoff chances, because I think a lot of people have the Knicks penciled in as a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. But where can they finish? Last year, they finished with the 5th seed. Can they get a top 4 seed? Can they get home court advantage in the first round? And the question I have is, how much of that and where they finish depends on them getting off to a good start? Their first 10 games, they have 10 games in 19 days, 3 back-to-backs in that stretch. So how important is it for them to get off to a good start? And also, in that span, how important is it for one of the guys that I think some people want to see make a leap, whether it's RJ Barrett, whether it's Quentin Grimes? How important is it for those guys in particular to get off to a good start? So with the Knicks playoffs chances, how much of that is tied into them getting off to a good start in the 2023-2024 NBA season?
CP, I don't know about you. I could listen to Dexter Henry talk all day. He could talk. Yeah. He could read like ingredients on the side of a somebody by a supermarket.
Dexter, man, do big moves on SNY, and he's fit for it. He's fit for it. Shout out to Dexter for sure.
Multi-part question there. Well, let's start with ceiling. I could see them getting home court.
Yes. Yeah, I can see them getting 4.
Yeah, I mean the East. I think the East. I don't want to say it's fluid, but like I think there's room. There's wiggle room for sure. From the top all the way on down. The start is an interesting one. What was your reaction when you looked at the schedule at first? Because I know, I'm sure, like me and like all of us, when the schedule first came out, you were looking and analyzing.
You try to predict.
Right? Go 10 games by 10 games.
Yeah, I forgot what I had for the first 10. I forgot. Me and Alex went through the exercise. I think I had them close to about 500 through the first 10. There are definitely some tough games on the docket there. But, as Dexter said, I don't think they can afford a slow start, even though last year things really came together after the 10-13 start. I got to figure that they're going to come in with way more chemistry. You hope that the DiVincenzo addition, it gives them a little bit of a lift. But overall, as you said, the East is very fluid. I think Philadelphia is burning. Without Harden, I don't fear them whatsoever. The Celtics have questions in terms of Porzingis' durability. The whole thing is on Brown and Tatum to lead this team. They're still going to be a good team. Don't get me wrong. But I think Milwaukee, to me, will be the bellwether. They will be at the top. Celtics, I would put, 1 or 2. And then after that, I think it's a crapshoot, man. I don't see Miami being that team again if they don't get Dame. We heard it from years now that Jimmy Butler, he doesn't even put in the work until after the All-Star break. So I don't think they'll be where they were, rather. The Nets are the Nets. Cleveland, does Cleveland take another step up? They added Strus off the bench and a couple other guys there. Look, as you said, I think we can get home court. I think 4th, I'm comfortable with saying the Knicks can get the 4th seed.
I agree. I haven't really done the exercise yet. I have a feeling I will not be predicting them to get a top 4 seed.
Yeah.
For anybody who may have forgotten or may not have looked, those first 10 games, Boston home, at Atlanta, at New Orleans, at Cleveland at home. It's a back-to-back against the Cavs. At Milwaukee, it's going to be fun. Clippers home, Spurs home, Charlotte home, and then at Boston. Those are the first 10. Other than San Antonio and Charlotte at home, like those are all real. Those are all very, very real games.
Yeah.
Where you figure early in the season, no one's going through it yet. Everybody's still putting their best foot forward. Like those are going to be tight. You figure those are all
Tough
going
games.
to be tight games, right? And that scares you a little bit. The Knicks were they were a good fourth quarter team last year. They were a good crunch time team. Obviously, Jalen Brunson was a very good crunch time player. But like I'll tell you right now, man, if you give me 5-5 through those first 10, find me where I sign off on 5-5 through those first 10. I'll just say that right now, because at least if you get through the first 10 at 5-5, and to answer the question, I do think it's important, because I don't know that for as much as this team accomplished last year, and for as much as Brunson has elevated their culture and their core and all that stuff, I don't know that I could put them on a pedestal to the point where it's like, if the Nuggets got off to a 3-7 start, we would be like, it's the Nuggets, right?
Yeah.
Very few, and I'm not saying like, oh, the Knicks aren't at that level. I don't know that there are 3 teams in that level at this point in the entire league. I don't think the Knicks are there. If the Knicks got off to some crazy bad start, 2-8, 3-7, I think it would cause a lot of my favorite word, consternation.
Sure.
So again, start off 5-5 or better. So you get, you breathe easy, and then you go from there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm with you. I'm not sure if they're good enough to overcome another tough start or one of those brutal stretches like they did last year. Every year is different. You can't count on that, and they're not at that level where, like you said, the Nuggets may be able to overcome that, or one of the more elite teams in the NBA. As far as the player that you would hope takes the leap.
Yeah, who's making the leap? I'm curious who your guy is. I don't know that I have an obvious one in my mind.
So I feel like if you look at the young guys, right? Mitch, I feel like Mitch's ceiling is kind of defined on this team right now. He's limited skill set offensively. They don't run plays for him. It's just he is who he is. But at the same time, a huge contributor to this team. IQ, having played at an NBA 6 Man of the Year level, is there another level for him to get to? That's left to be seen. Again, minutes will certainly play a factor in that. RJ, as we just talked about, I still think the inconsistency is gonna hit him. Do I see him taking another big leap? Like another leap for me for RJ is like borderline all-star, like a guy that you can truly consider in that conversation. You might not make it, but somebody who should be in that conversation. I don't think he necessarily gets there. So for me, it's Grimes. It's Grimes for me. Defensively, he's going to be there. One of the best in the league by the numbers, by the eye test. He's there. But offensively, it's still going to be tricky. Like, there's no guarantees. He's almost my answer by default. But is there, we saw these flashes from him last year as a playmaker, as a quick decision maker, putting the ball on the floor, the way he attacks closeouts. He did still shoot 38% from the field during the regular season. Like, is there a little bit more offense there if he makes the right reads, if his team trusts him, and if he does, as many say, in year 3 and beyond, have the game come to him and the game slows down where he gets more comfortable with what he's doing out there?
I completely agree with you that Grimes on his face is the obvious answer.
Yeah.
And yet it's funny you say that, because I was working on a Quentin Grimes newsletter, because I'm doing like player previews for the Knicks Film School newsletter for over the course of the next month. There were somewhere in the 30s, about 35 players, wings, as categorized by Cleaning the Glass, that played at least 1,500 minutes last regular season. Quentin Grimes had the 3rd lowest usage rate of those 35 wings to play at least 1,500 minutes. Corey Kispert and Isaac Okoro were the only ones that were lower than him. In a starting lineup with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle and RJ Barrett, what does a leap look like for him where he's not taking more shots? And if he's taking a bunch more shots, like who's giving up their shots to a Mitch can't give up any shots. He's taking any shots,
right.
You know? So it's like, for me, I think that's why here, I'm going to throw a bone to all the people who think I hate RJ. I'll say RJ. And part of that is yes, because I think the shots will be there for RJ, because that's just what happens. You know, that's the role he has here. And that's, and again, let me give him credit. That's the role he has here because he can get off those shots. That's what he shows he can do. He can get downhill anytime he wants. He can get a decent shot off the rim anytime he wants. I hope I think for this team to make the sort of leap that a lot of Knicks fans think maybe they can make, I actually think that leap needs to come from RJ. I'm not sure if it could come from anywhere else for them to make, again, like that significant leap with this roster without any star trade. So.
Yeah, it has to come from RJ. It definitely has to come from RJ. I just have Grimes as the default, but it's also important, whether it's Grimes or it's RJ, it's IQ. It's important for the trajectory of this team because you can't rely on that this guy's coming to the Knicks, that guy. We've been hearing it for 10 years. So if the guy doesn't come, your young players have to help you get somewhere. It's not going to be a draft pick. Low chance it's going to be a draft pick for them in the high 20s as his team looks right now. So it has to be of Grimes. It's got to be Grimes, RJ, or IQ. One of those three guys has to take that leap if this team doesn't look to get considerably better out there on the trade market in the coming years.
Which I have a funny feeling they will still do, regardless of what any of those three players do this year. Andrew, who we got next?
Before I officially go to our last two, can I hold your feet to the fire? And
mine? Sure.
Both of you.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten yours already, John. Yeah. But CP,
I have no more feet. My feet are gone.
Your top six as of right now, if you were to predict it for the NBA, for the Eastern Conference playoffs, will be
for the East top six.
This is in this hypothetical, not realistic world where no trades happen. So, just as the rosters are currently constructed in the NBA, everybody reports the camp as is. What's your 1 through 6?
Top 6. All right. So I'm going to go Bucks number 1, obviously health for everybody. Right. So I'll go Bucks 1. I'll go Celtics 2. 3.
That's the one. That's the one we're all kind of like, huh?
You can talk yourself into it.
Shit, man. I'll give it to Cleveland, man. I don't really want to give it to Cleveland, but I'll give it to Cleveland, man.
CP took my top 3 in the order I have them.
I don't really want to. 4, I have the Knicks. I got the Knicks 4th. I'm comfortable saying that. I have the Knicks 4th. I'll give Miami 5. Or do I want to give Brooklyn 5?
Wow, really?
Wow.
I'm high on Brooklyn. I really like this Brooklyn team. I like the way the roster is constructed. I don't love the fact that Spencer Dinwiddie and Ben Simmons are their like lead playmakers, but I do like them a lot. It would not shock me if they were in top 6. I'll say that.
Yeah. I'll put the Nets at 5 and I'll put Miami at 6.
Wow.
So you have James Harden really torpedoing the Philly situation. So
I don't. I love the take. Think that's gonna be a nightmare, man.
Here's where I'll differ. Until Joel Embiid is no longer on the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm keeping the Sixers in 4th. And I'll put the Knicks in 5th. And I can't shake the feeling that I think the Hawks are going to be pretty decent this year, but I'll go Miami 6. But yeah, you could tell me again. You could tell me the Knicks are 3rd. You tell me the Knicks are 2nd. You could tell me the Knicks are 7th. Would believe either. But I could say that for the only team that it would shock me if they were not in the top 3 is Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Would it shock me if Boston was in the top 3? I don't know if it would. I don't know if it would shock me. It would surprise me a lot.
Look, I like it a Maxey Embiid ticket. I just don't see that team being that much without Harden.
And I hope you're right. So you don't.
And if Embiid misses time, which you can pencil in, then they're really screwed.
You know what the funniest thing about the Harden thing is? Every NBA person, because there's nothing else to talk about, has logged their opinion, most of which have logged their opinion multiple times over the last, month and change. No one can make a prediction on what is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because what nobody knows. Nobody has any idea.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I guess you can count on is Morey's going to sit and wait if he needs to sit and wait, right? He showed you that with Ben Simmons. So I think the ball is in James Harden's court. For some reason, he thinks it's, 5-6 years ago when he was at the top of the sport. I don't see him finding many suitors for his services at this point in his career.
Note to young NBA players, this is why you hire an agent. I know James Harden has saved himself some dollars over the years because he doesn't have to pay that 10%. We're going to look back and he may have cost himself 9 figures when all this is said and done. So, neither here nor there. Next question.
Real quick, talk about an interesting back-to-back playoff experiences for the Knicks. If they go from we didn't trade for Donovan Mitchell and then we eliminated Donovan Mitchell and then a playoff series against Joel Embiid with the potential Embiid trade request looming, we could put a dagger through the heart of the Philly run in the process all in one 3-week stretch.
But if things go as poorly as some CP you seem to think and others seem, you're not alone, to be very clear. A lot of people seem to think this thing could sink in fast. We, as you alluded to, I think on our recent Patreon, Andrew, we may not have to wait till next summer for an Embiid trade request.
Very true. Very true. Okay, 2 more, and I think you guys are really going to like this next one.
All right.
Okay.
Jonathan, CP, if you guys had Tom Thibodeau on the podcast, what would you ask him? Thibodeau's put up with a lot of my nonsense over the years, so I'm curious, if you had the Knicks head coach on your shows, what's the one question you would want to throw at him? And also, if you're Thibodeau, how do you allot minutes this season between Dante DiVincenzo and Quentin Grimes? Who gets more minutes? Who gets fewer minutes? Curious to hear your thoughts on that one. Thanks.
Who was that guy? If there's a Knicks fan who does, I'm Ian Bagley, obviously. If there's a Knicks fan who doesn't recognize that voice at this point, I mean, what are you doing? I would have to catch my breath before if Tom Thibodeau appeared on a screen before me and I got to have a one-on-one with him. I think I would hyperventilate. I would really, that would be a moment for me. Man, what would I ask him? What, Andrew?
Just the thought that you've had Jeremy Lin on the pod, you've had Zach Lowe on the pod. Is Tibbs your number one? Is Tibbs your number one right now, as far as guests are concerned?
Listen, my number one in terms of who I would like a quiver in fear at the sight of them and not be able to say words is Pat Riley.
Another coach. Yeah.
After Riley. And it doesn't matter if Tibbs is still the coach or if he retires. I just have so much respect for Tom Thibodeau. I truly don't know that I'd be able to have a coaching conversation, but I would try.
CP, your number one as of right now is who? As far as like the bucket list guest,
Carmelo.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
you man. Carmelo. I mean, I'm surprised you haven't gotten Carmelo already.
Yeah. Carmelo. Carmelo's definitely at the top of the list.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Man, well, let's take these one at a time because those are great questions. What would I ask Tibbs? So the tough part is is Tibbs the Knicks coach when I'm interviewing? Because then a lot of the stuff that I'd be really interested in finding out, he wouldn't be able to give me. Assuming I could get genuine answers, I would only want to know, I would focus the entire conversation. Actually, I would split it 50-50. I would just want to talk about him as a person. What does he like to do on a Friday night when he's the Friday night in the middle of August or something when there's literally no film he could look like? What does a night look like for Tom Thibodeau? Where does he want to go eat? Who does he want to hang out with? What is he drinking?
You know he's watching film right now, right?
I'm sure he is. And then I would just want to know his philosophy. I would basically, you know what I would do? Here's how I would structure it. I would go through the top 10 criticisms of him from most Knicks fans levied at him over the last 3 years. And I'd be like, this is what has happened. Here's what people say in response to the thing that has happened. When I look at it, maybe it's just because I'm glass half full guy wherever he's concerned, but like, this is what I'm thinking. What were you thinking? You know, and that I would kind of try to structure an interview like that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I would definitely, I like that approach. You know, I would definitely go with that approach. One thing I would ask him on along that line is that athletic poll, right? Where it said like a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, maybe where he was voted as a coach that players would least want to play for, right? What's his reaction to that, and why does he think that is? But my main question to him would be his thoughts on the offense and his philosophy on the offense. Based on the people we speak to, it seems like that's primarily his role, right? That does he have a designated offensive coordinator? Doesn't seem so, but I would want to know what is his offensive philosophy? What is he thinking there? Yes, the team finished third in the league in offense during the regular season, but is that type of offense sustainable in the postseason? What happens when you guys are kept off the glass and you're not getting the second chance opportunities? What happens when your isolation scorers aren't able to score, when the defense is grinding down and the game slows down in the half court, where you're not getting fast break opportunities? What is his philosophy there? How does he adjust? Because what we've seen is that when you look at the Final Four in most years, a lot of the times, yes, the makeup may be different, the stars may be different, but a lot of those times, those teams are elite at moving the ball. They're near the tops of the league in passing, assist percentage, any type of passing category you want to look at. Those teams that finish in the Final Four, the true contenders, they're up there. They move the ball. They find easy buckets. They're constantly moving. So that's what I would want to ask him is like, does he feel like the personnel's not there yet? Or is it scheme-wise that they're just not implementing enough? I think that would be my question for tips.
I would wager a donut that the words rim read would be included somewhere in his answer. And just if I'll give one specific, I am curious because he said at every coaching stop, whenever somebody criticizes or somebody asks him about a potential system change or I guess lineup change, but more system change, his response is, is the execution there and is the effort there? And with the implication being, if the execution's not there and if the effort's not there, then it's not the system to blame. Yeah. Like, what is his thought when something is clearly failing and it's failing again and again and again, as has happened throughout his career at times? How does his thought process work in terms of pulling the plug? Because we have seen him pull the plug, regardless of execution, effort and all those things. Like, clearly there is a part of him that knows when it's time, it's time. I want to know, like, again, what does that look like for him? What that specifically that thought process. As far as the minutes go, man, we kind of touched on it before. I've done the math. I know you've done the math. The minutes are not there.
Yeah.
And forget about the backup power forward thing. I'm sure there are still people out there who think the Knicks are going to sign a backup power forward that's going to play Obi's minutes.
It won't be Isaiah Roby.
It will not. It is. So I suspect that, to answer Ian's other question, that when everybody is healthy, everybody will have a baseline of like 10 minutes a half or 20 minutes a game, whatever you want to say. And you get to the last 5 minutes and the people of RJ, Grimes, Quickley, and Hart, whichever two of those four are having the best games / whatever the matchup dictates, two of those four will close. And those will be the guys that get 26 or 27, 28 minutes as opposed to 21 or 22. I know my math was a little off there, but like, I think that's how it's going to go. And I think at the end of the day, the averages will work out because guys miss games. That's my guess. But I do think we're gonna, like, right from opening night, I wouldn't be shocked if, I don't know if it's gonna be Quickley, I don't know if it's gonna be Grimes, I don't think it's gonna be RJ. Might be DiVincenzo. Someone's gonna have a minute total that's gonna be like 21, 22, something in that range. It's because there's no other way for it to happen. It's unavoidable.
Yeah, I think you're going to have situations where after every loss, that's going to be the question. Where was so-and-so down the crunch time?
Immediately.
You add DiVincenzo to the mix, it's 5, right? It's RJ, it's Quick.
Did I not name DiVincenzo just now?
It's hard. It's DiVincenzo. It's 5 players. So after every loss, you can expect Tibbs to be asked, hey, what happened to this guy? He was cooking here, he was cooking there. But I just think the game is going to dictate it. 1 and 4 in crunch time. 1 and 4 are slotted in. It's Jalen, it's Julius. Other than that, I think the game is going to dictate who you go with at the 2 and the 3, depending on who in the matchups, who's playing well, who's got it cooking, who's got the momentum going into the fourth quarter, into crunch time. I just think that that's the only way that that Tibbs is going to be able to play it here, because you have guys who the skill sets aren't necessarily similar, but there's not necessarily one who's a cut above the rest. So you're going to have nights where RD's up and nights where he's down. DiVincenzo's up, DiVincenzo's down. Hart same way. Grimes same way. And so, as you said, maybe injuries help things play out. But I also think the game is just going to have to tell the story.
You just made, very briefly, I know we're getting long on time, you just made me think of, like, I'm not going to group anybody else in with me. I tend to think of those. Yes, it is 5. Apologies to Dante DiVincenzo. I forgot you existed for a moment. I group those 5. I kind of throw them in one bucket. It's like the 5 wings, and I understand Quickley's more of a point guard than a wing, but like the 5 other guys who aren't Brunson and Randle and they are at centers. I wonder if there will be more specific either ors within those 5. For instance, I don't love Josh Hart and RJ Barrett on the court together.
Yes,
for reasons that should probably be obvious, which is why so many people got pissed off during the playoffs, because they started games together and it's clearly very clunky. Like, will it be either one of those 2 on the floor at the end of the game? Looking at, like, if Brunson's out there, which we assume Brunson's going to be out there most of the time, like, does that mean both? Or does that mean it's going to be one of Grimes, Quickley, and DiVincenzo because of size, right? Like, how small do you want to go? That to me is going to be something worth monitoring in terms of the closing lineups, in terms of, like, how much mixing and matching is there at the end of the game. So something to look forward to. All right, there's the last one now, right, Andrew?
Good stuff, fellas. So I'm going to need you guys to buckle up for this.
Oh, boy. All right, there we go.
Okay. And for headphone users, I got the best audio quality I could. But for this last one,
I'm really afraid.
I think you're really going to, man, I think I outdid myself. So,
here we go. All right.
Last but not least.
Hey guys, Mark Berman from Palm Beach County. I had a question about Knicks retirement jersey issues. I know I did a piece freelance-wise on Carmelo Anthony. May not have his number retired in Denver, number 15, because Jokic is currently wearing it, and it might be awkward. Should the Knicks step up then and retire 7, even though his playoff history was very minuscule? And is there any other player, perhaps Bernard King, who deserves to have his number hanging in the rafters? The Knicks historically have been very cautious about retiring jerseys unless you won a championship or your name was Patrick Ewing. So this goes out to Macri and CP. Just wondering your thoughts.
So
you say, look at this. Look at this.
Just a few things. So again, I find myself saying this a lot. If you're not yet subscribed to the Knicks Film School YouTube channel, today is the day to do it. So you could see Mark Berman sporting a really nice 5 o'clock stubble. I do have to say, he's wearing it really well, along with, make sure I don't forget anything here. A really lovely floral print Hawaiian shirt number. I think I count 2 buttons unbuttoned there, and a pair of lavender sunglasses.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's a beach in the background. Like I think that's a beach.
He's sitting in one of those oversized beach chairs that you see like
on the beach.
But like at the front of the beach, like welcome to the beach.
Welcome to the beach.
Yeah. And so
I know what the sign says, even though you can't read it all. It's City of Lake Worth, Palm Beach, Florida. Yeah.
My God.
He is Florida Manning so hard right now. And I love it in all of its glory. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, so much. So Knicks retired numbers.
You know what's funny about this? Earlier today, and I know CP, you probably have a lot of the same alerts on your phone that I do. I got an alert that next season, the Charlotte, I was going to say Bobcats. Maybe they're going to revert to being the Bobcats for this celebration. The Hornets are going to celebrate Baron Davis and Gerald Wallace. Now look. What's the Nick? Always the Nick. Baron Davis. Baron Davis and Gerald Wallace, wonderful players. I'm sure they both made the playoffs there. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Baron Davis was part of that Charlotte team. I think they won a playoff series. I think way back when, maybe, or maybe I may be confused. What the point is? Other organizations, like if you walk and chew gum at the same time, you're getting your jersey night and your whole thing. The Knicks, I kind of want to say to their credit, have not done that. Because it's an easy way to sell tickets. It's an easy way to sell, other paraphernalia. I think Melo is an obvious yes. I'll just start there. And I don't know if you know this about me. I'm not a huge Melo guy.
Yeah.
I think he's an obvious yes.
I don't know, man. Well, first of all, shout out to Berman, man. Nobody does retire.
Shout out to Mark
better than Berman, man. Even when he's retired, he throws grenades over the fence every once in a while, just stir up some controversy. So I always love that about him. What Charlotte is doing, Giants and Jets are doing it. Many teams doing it with their Ring of Honor. Yankees have now started to do that in Monument Park. Now guys get a plaque. Your number's not going to get retired.
You get a plaque.
But you get a plaque for some of the fan favorites. Nice marketing ploy. You get people in seats. Salute your guy. Give him a standing ovation, curtain call, whatever it is. I think the Knicks could do something like that for the Mellows, the Kings. You want to go Starks, Oakley, if Mason, your guys back in those days. Maybe they do something like that. But, I mean, this is just based on the Knicks standards, right? He doesn't make it. Based on their standards, I don't think he makes it. There was just not enough winning during his time here.
Here's my pushback.
Yeah.
You said based on the Knicks standards.
Yeah.
To me, the Knicks standards have been allowed to be very black and white, because if you look at their history, they had obviously one successful era, and all the important guys from that era, their numbers are retired.
Yeah.
And then since then, they've had one other successful period or period of sustained success, and then they retired the most important guy.
Yeah.
There was never anybody from the Ewing era, and I'll include Houston and Sprewell, and Latrell Sprewell is my favorite Knick, him or Ewing, one or the other, that even with the winning, rose to the level of, we really need to give this guy strong consideration. To me, Oakley was always if there was going to be a second guy from that era, it was going to be Oakley because of the years of service time, because of the consistency. And obviously we know he's not getting his jersey retired. Melo almost falls into a different category because he was a perennial all-star and he was here for 7 years. And in terms of never made it to a conference finals, but made the playoffs those 3 times. Clearly he's the best player. Got, as we mentioned before, he third in MVP. I mean, how many players in the history of this franchise have been in top 3 MVP? And which leads us to King. Yes, King was second in MVP, but his career here, for all intents and purposes, as at peak King, was a year and a half.
Yeah, it's too short.
that to me is the key differentiator between King and Melo. And I understand people listening to this and screaming and yelling, old heads, poppycock.
They're going Kings. Yeah, they're going King.
King has to be in if Melo's in, and King should go in before Melo. I hear you. I think there's a world where they could legitimately, like, straight face, not for any illegitimate reasons, hang Melo's number in the rafters.
Look, I'd love to see it. If they did, I'd be the first one in the building. That's my guy. Talent be damned. There just was not enough success. They did make the playoffs, even with those rosters, man. Tony Douglas and Sean Williams and all these, and Sky Billy Walker and all these guys. But I just, again, by their standards, I don't see him getting in. I don't see him getting in. We'd love to see it. Maybe they do one of those Ring of Honor type of things. So
CP, let me ask a question about the Knicks standards, because you're a Yankee fan. And
yes,
there's a Yankee standard now the Yankees have won so many championships that they'd be like, if you won a championship, you're eligible. So that covers like 500 people.
Mm-hmm.
But the Mets have kind of had that standard for so long that the only retired number they had was Tom Seaver and Gil Hodges and Mike Piazza. So it was like, if you won a World Series or you were a Hall of Famer, that's really what it was. If you were a Hall of Famer, you got your number retired. And they had two numbers for like 32 years of my life that were retired that were players. And in the last 3 years under this new owner, there's a new standard where it's like, if I watched you in the 80s, we're retiring your number. Like Keith Hernandez gets his number retired. That's really all Steve Cohen's doing is like, remember the 80s when I made my fortune? I loved watching the Mets. So Keith Hernandez, Doc and Darryl. I'm telling you, Ron Darling's next. Wally Backman's next. All of the 86 Mets are going to be on the left field corridor pretty soon. Jesse and Roger on the same day. That whole road, Bobby Ojeda, you name it.
I have to jump in here though, because I can't believe I'm defending Melo to you. If they retire Melo's number, I don't think their standards need to go down one bit. No one else needs to have their jersey retired.
It's why the question for CP is like, should the Knicks have this standard? A team that has Yankee standards or that type of strict standard of like, if you won a championship, if you're like you have to have this to make it into Monument Park, or because the Knicks have the Mets history, should there be less of a restriction, and should they let in a Melo or a Bernard? Or if I see the point you're making, John, I know the counterpoint has always been though that like guy made the second round once, so we're going to really raise his numbers.
So CP, what are your thoughts?
I think they should. But as John said, if Melo does get in, doesn't mean I'm retiring Starks' number and Oakley and all these guys. No. I think Melo as a basketball player, as the talent that he is, and the guy that put up numbers when he was with this team, and who's going to be a Hall of Famer, I think he should.
Carmelo Anthony's a top 75 all-time player. He will be remembered as a Knick more than anything else. He should have his number retired. Bernard King should have been a top 75 all-time player. At the absolute worst, he's in the top 100 of all time. And like, I think he should be in the top 75. He will be remembered for his time as a Knick. If you want to put him in there too, I obviously have no issue with it. You don't need to go any further than that. It doesn't, that's what makes it different from the Yankees and frankly from the Mets. The Mets have a lot of guys that theoretically now could, like, I wouldn't have to start going through them, but like the Knicks, you could stop at those two and you don't have to go a step further. So,
interesting. Well, thank you, CP, as always, for humoring. Hold on. I did it again. Damn it, guys! There's another question. Every year.
This is yours.
I keep forgetting that there's one question, and I
was waiting for this, man.
I'm so sorry, CP. We got one more. I hope you got this. Man, I'm such a bad producer, potentially a bad actor when people see this later. Last one.
Be convinced.
All right.
Hey, John. Hey, CP. Thank you, as always, for taking my call. It is an honor every year to get the chance to ask a question to two great Knicks content creators as yourselves. My question is actually about the other crossover that just happened. So last week, I think it was on this same channel, Alex of Knicks Fan TV jumped on Knicks Film School, and he had a conversation with the adorable newly married executive producer. I forget his name. I believe he goes by four letters at this point. But they had a conversation about who runs New York at the moment, and a lot of people objected. I think there were Giants fans, and they weren't as kind to the Giants, and they're really excited about the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, and they didn't mention a single hockey player, which was probably an oversight on their part. But since it's obvious that Aaron Rodgers runs New York at the moment and that the Giants are suddenly little brother, I actually wanted to get your take on who's second and then so on in New York. Who runs the city at the moment? Is it Jalen Brunson? Is it a New York Knick? Is it still Aaron Judge? Is it Jason Dominguez of the Yankees in the run that they're potentially making? So as far as popularity, notoriety, attention, who would be leading all the sports programs at WFAN or ESPN Radio, or even if the two of you were doing a New York sports talk show and not just Knicks, who would be the number one person on that list? Who runs New York? I guess technically, who would be number two? Isn't it great that the Jets got Aaron Rodgers? Finally, New York has a quarterback that's going to make the Hall of Fame that's going to play for them. Since we haven't had that in over 20 years, right? I'll hang up and listen.
Oh, boy. I was waiting for that.
CP, who runs New York?
Oh, it's easy. It's Brunson.
Okay.
This is Brunson's town right now, man.
I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, this is Brunson's town. Judge coming off the injury, Yankees being atrocious. He's going to slide to 2. I'm putting DJ at 3. DJ being Daniel Jones. Yeah, okay. That's him. He plays for the Giants. I'll put Rodgers next at 4. He hasn't earned anything, but he is Rodgers, and Jets fans always want to win something. So I'll give you guys 4th.
So let me ask you this hypothetical snenario. You and John are hosting afternoon talk radio show.
Yeah.
Okay. You both get the afternoon slot on the Fan. You're filling in for Tiki and for Evan for an afternoon.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that you would plan out the program by talking about Jalen Brunson first, Aaron Judge second, Daniel Jones third, and then you'll mention Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, well, when they know that me and John are on and it's a better show, the Knicks fans are going to call in. So they're going to know that we're going to talk Brunson. We're talking Knicks when me and Macri are on. And our people are going to come through, of course. Easy.
So I wasn't going to try to take a shot at whose show is better and who hasn't, but that
would be lovely.
Shout out to Evan, but those are my guys.
If we're not living so much in the moment, I think it's obviously Aaron Judge. But if we are living in the present moment, I'll just say that. And again, I haven't really watched football in a couple of years. If Aaron Rodgers starts 2-0, forget it. It's done. It's over.
I think if he starts 1-0, if they blow out the they win on Monday night. We've got 6
against the Bills, right?
Against the Bills, yeah,
big game.
I'm talking about like real, like 2-0. He looks really good. They look really good through 2 games. Then I think there will be more excitement over him than any New York athletes since, I guess, Judge first came up, probably.
His rookie season?
Yeah. That would seem to be accurate. With a tip of the cap to Saquon, I guess, when he was first around. Because that was pretty exciting too, right?
Yeah. I can agree with that. Once they start to earn it and turn the Jets fans into believers, because, you guys need all that goodwill. So
I think there are some Jet fans, myself included, that. So I will just, like, we're having fun. We're doing a show. Like, I'm doing everything not to fully jump off the bridge, CP, or jump out the window. Expression that both you and John are familiar with.
Yeah.
It is impossible to not. This is the most excited I've ever been for a sports season of a team that I root for ever. And I guess my question, if I can adjust it to an actual serious question, is like, what's the most you've ever been excited for a sports season for a team that you've rooted for? And has the hype ever been met with, the expectation, whether they won the title or not? Like, is neither here nor there. Did you enjoy the journey of the hype that was created at the beginning of the season?
For me, it's always the year after the Giants win the Super Bowl, and they always let you down. The Giants never handle hype well. The year after they won it in 2007, I thought that team was going to be better than the 2007 year. And you know how that ended with Plaxico shooting himself in the leg and shooting the team in the leg, because that was just absolutely ridiculous.
It's not what you want.
When the Yankees got A-Rod and Sheffield, I was really looking forward to that year.
Wow.
I was really looking forward to that year. And they were great. They were a great team.
And then we know how that
ended, right? Mm-hmm. So those would be those 3 seasons was off the bat. 2008 Giants, 2012 Giants, and then whichever year the Yankees got A-Rod and Sheffield. I forget which year they got.
2004. It's 2004.
04.
Yeah.
This is cheating because it's not a team sport, but I've never been more excited in my life than when Tiger was in his prime to turn on TV. First minute, whatever major started on a Thursday, and just root like hell. In terms of team sports, though, I mean, I don't know. Probably, I'm going back. You know what? I'm not going to count my years when I was a teenager. This is going to sound nuts. The 2010-11 Knicks, because it was the first full year with Melo, and I was like, we got Melo, we got Stoudemire, we don't have a point guard, but who cares? We're gonna win 50 games. And then I forget what we started, but wasn't very good. I gotta say, I think that year probably takes the cake.
Is that your Nick answer, CP?
My Nick answer would be 2012.
12-13. That's my
12-13. When they got Jason Kidd, my guy Rasheed Wallace was on the team. I was like, oh my God. Kurt Thomas came back, Hamby came back. So definitely didn't expect them to win 50 games. But especially the way that they came out the gates. I was at the game when they beat Miami. They beat the big 3 with LeBron and Wade. It made you feel good about the team, man. And then they had a great season.
They did. I got the year wrong. It was 11-12. 10-11, they made the trade for Melo during that year.
Yeah.
The following year.
Yeah. I think those are the Nick answers, because I didn't go into a lot of, because my Nick experience starts in 99. So going into the 2000 season, there was just like an expectation that we start paying attention once the playoffs start.
Man, I'll just jump in real quick. I remember the feeling going into the 1999-2000 season. I was hyped coming off that finals, feeling like, okay, Pat's back. Maybe it's the last run, but Pat's back. I was 16 at the time or 17, whatever I was. I was like, oh, we would have beaten the Spurs if we had Patrick Ewing. Sprewell was there. The team came together. I was like, and look, they went to the freaking conference finals that year. Yeah. They were really, really good. But
what a time. The Knicks went to the conference finals and it was considered a disappointment.
Yeah, right.
It is the most under-remembered, underappreciated, under-discussed season, I would argue, in their history. That was a fantastic season. Yeah. And obviously a fantastic win over the Heat in the second round, but for a different podcast.
Well, in all sincerity, thank you, CP. And I have the Giants. I am predicting the Giants to make the playoffs. I have them as my 7 seed. I do hope that the Jets are better and that they have I hope this season's fun, because I can't deal with the fact, like, if Rodgers comes out here and looks like Russell Wilson, then I may just delete myself from the internet and not go near a person for this entire football season. I have been given so many cups of Kool-Aid to drink, and I'm like, hey, I'll take the water for now, but like, put it to the side. I'll drink it after I see something. And then this clip from Hard Knocks, or this stat about how Josh Allen does against the Jets, or Aaron Rodgers hasn't lost on Monday Night Football since 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it was a game that he left after 2 plays because he got hurt. And then the game before that he lost, the last 2 losses he has, where that game he got hurt. And do you remember the Fail Mary?
Yes.
The replacement refs game?
Yes. Against the Seahawks.
So those are the last 2 times Aaron Rodgers
Seahawks, right?
lost. Yeah, the Seahawks.
Yeah.
So since he was 35 years old, he hasn't lost a game on Monday Night Football.
Yes, John. But like, that's why it's so set up for the Jets to be like, oh, he hasn't lost on Monday Night Football since 2012. The Jets will end that streak, no problem. And that's the fear, is that they're the Jets will happen, and good things will happen.
JETS, just. CP, you're the man, truly living legend, guiding star, shining light for anybody get in front of a microphone that isn't, doesn't have an ESPN contract in their back pocket. You continue to set the standard, and it's great continuing to watch you from afar and get to do things like this occasionally. Hopefully I see you out in the wild at some point this year.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, maybe at a game or somewhere else. But yeah, man, quite a ride. And I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, tell folks at home, like as if people need to be told where to find you. But say whatever you want to say before we get out of here.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure to be on the show with you guys. Hopefully we can cook something up during the season for the fans to enjoy. We got the part 2 of the crossover, which will come up before the season starts. So I'll definitely circle back with you guys to schedule that one. But youtube.com/Knicks Fan TV or youtube.com/@the NBA And yeah, man, just tap in with us. Definitely appreciate you guys for having me on.
Always a pleasure. And thank you, Andrew Claudio, for putting together all these questions, especially the one from Mark Bourbon. That was special. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. We will be back with more fun and games very soon. Peace out.